You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K24. BJ's in a good mood today. He's got high spirits. How are you, BJ?
I'm doing great. Real name, no gimmicks. And our relationship continues to grow. It just,
you know the vibes.
You're an amazing person. You are an amazing person.
I appreciate that. And the feeling is mutual, my brother. Me and BJ have just been having a great conversation about how much we appreciate you guys who tune into the show. Yesterday, we answered a bunch of your questions. Today, we're going to answer a bunch more because the questions kept coming in. So salute to everyone who's in the Discord community. You can join it by hitting the link in the description of this show. BJ, you ready? You ready? What did you call it in season 1? You called it Hoopology. Class is now in session.
Yes, class is now in session. Let's get it.
Professor Armstrong. Andy Williams says, and this is how you know Andy's a real dedicated listener to this show.
Okay.
He says, BJ, what will 1 + 1 equal this year?
13.
And there you have it, folks. If you don't understand the reference to that question, you should have been listening to this podcast since day one. But if not, BJ, can you explain the context around that question?
Well, Mo, I'll let you explain it. Well, you are. It's kind of your world, you know. I'm just here. It's your world. You're kind enough to let me in it. So go ahead. You explain.
Well, this is actually a story from BJ Armstrong's life, and it's actually in my notes here because I have a list of quotes that stay with me.
Oh, okay.
And a young BJ Armstrong came to the NBA.
Oh, wow.
He was talking to an NBA coach.
Yes.
And the coach was telling him that this league is complete and utter chaos. And he said, BJ, yes. What's 2 + 2? And BJ said 4. And the coach said, no, you're wrong. If 2 + 2 equals anything equals 4, then you're not going to be successful in this league. It has to equal anything but 4. So whether it's 2 + 2, 1 + 1, whatever it is, in this league, the NBA is never the answer you're thinking of. Did I tell it correctly?
Well, hey, as you said, you nailed it. That is the NBA in a nutshell. It's total chaos. You're dealing with, not just the sports aspect of it. You're dealing with people. And where there's people, there are going to be problems. And you have to deal with that and be prepared to deal with that on the fly, whatever comes your way. So if you're going to be successful up here, you have to understand the mathematics of the situation.
Yes, sir. Well, speaking of chaos and dysfunction, Austin Reeves was projected to make a leap for the Lakers this season. He went to the World Cup. And Stuart wants to know what's happened to Austin Reeves this season. Surely the clock hasn't struck midnight. Now, if you look at his performances, BJ, in the regular season, he's yet to score more than 15 points in a game. Okay. His three-point shooting has been horrendous. He's failed to make more than 1 3-pointer in a single game that he's played in. He's averaging less than 20%, I believe. His field goal percentage has been not great, less than ideal as well. His most recent game, he got 7 assists, but before that, his passing wasn't too on point. And defensively, he wasn't quite the same. So what's happened to Austin Reeves other than he's now on everyone's radar and on everyone's scouting report because of what he did last season?
Well, I think this year, every year is a new year, Mo, as you hear me say this.
Yes.
And what he did last year was a different team. What he did last year, the situation fit his skill set, and he had a different role than he did a year ago. And, Mo, no one ever talks about this, but people in this league who play in this league, you begin to reflect on this as you get older. It's easier. When I say easier, better players are the starters in this league than the guys coming off the bench. Now, Austin Reeves now is playing predominantly the minutes that he's playing, which probably are right around the same as he did a year ago, but now he's doing it against starters. The starters in this league are different than the guys coming off the bench. And what you're seeing now, Mo, is when you become a starter, a full-time starter in this league, suddenly you have to stop playing and you have to actually carry out a game plan because you are the front line in executing that game plan. Where when you come off the bench, you just try to integrate yourself into the game as quickly as you can. Most of the time, that's from scoring. If you're a defensive player, you try to rim protect or defend or what have you. So what you're seeing with Austin Reeves now is suddenly now he has responsibility that he didn't have a year ago. Now he has to run the team. Now he has to make sure that AD gets his shots. Now he has to make sure that LeBron gets his shots. And by the way, D'Angelo Russell. And so where a year ago, he didn't have to carry out that responsibility or that game plan on a night-to-night basis. And by the way, he's got to guard the other team's probably best offensive player.
And by the way, the Laker fans no longer have Russell Westbrook to use as a scapegoat every time something goes wrong, like they did last year.
Absolutely. So, last year, I think it was Russell and
Schroeder
or Russell and Patrick Beverley were the starters. And then, Austin Reeves came off the bench. So now it's a little different. So it's going to take a little time for him to adjust, which is expected. But more importantly, his job is really, really difficult, much more difficult than it was a year ago, because he's playing against the frontline players, having to guard those players, having to carry out the responsibility. And by the way, he still wants to put up, good numbers himself. So, I understand it. And, as you always say, be careful what you ask for. You might get it. And now he's sitting in that seat. And now he sees how difficult it is to have to carry out that responsibility. And that's why some of these guys make it look easy, but it's really very difficult.
Oh, Josh Mbassi says, is the new Clippers team the best 4 players to ever play on a team together? The answer is no.
No.
If they were all in their primes, the answer would still probably be no.
Probably the answer is no. Come on. Come on.
Yeah. But speaking of the Clippers, 21K Wakes has raised an interesting point we didn't discuss. Do you think the Clippers have played a blinder in the trade, especially when it comes to the new rules regarding resting players? Harden, Leonard, George, and Westbrook all fit under the new criteria for All-Star games. So the Clippers making this trade, they now can afford to rest 2 of their 4 stars in any given game. And given their health issues, do you think that this is a dub?
I watched the Lakers and the Clippers last night. And the Clippers started out, they were terrific. I mean, in particular, Kawhi Leonard was like, wow. I mean, Kawhi Leonard had, I don't know what he finished with, but he had a big game last night. But they lost. Yeah, but the Lakers came back, won the game in overtime, and
Paul George fouled out early in that overtime.
Yes. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what? The Lakers, they've lost like 10 or 11 games in a row or something like that against the Clippers over the last, 2 or 3 years. I don't think they beat the Lakers in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure what's going on with the Clippers. I'm not sure. They have these lineups where it's like 4 guards and then Zubac. And then they had 4 guards and then PJ Tucker. Well, he's really the size of a guard. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work. It sounds good. There are big names, obviously all-stars, MVPs, defensive player of the year, But there's a thing called chemistry. And I'm not sure how this is going to work, Mo. I don't know how this is going to work offensively, defensively, chemistry-wise, cohesiveness. I don't know. But it's going to be fascinating. And we'll see how it plays out. I mean, James Harden had all the chains on. He had all the jewelry on. I don't know, Mo. I just don't know how this is going to play out in the end. But they have the names. It sounds good. The Clipper Nation is fired up about it. But we'll see how it turns out.
AG wants to know, is Cam Thomas the greatest player the NBA has ever seen? Because he started the season putting up 36, then 30, then 33, all at around 60% shooting as well. But then the answer is already here. In game number 4, he followed up with 13 points, going 4 of 19 from the field. And we saw him do this last season. He had a hot streak where he absolutely balled out, and then he was banished to the bench. Defensively, he's got a lot to work on. We all know he can score the basketball. Even Kevin Durant said that at his time there. I don't think we need to go into that too much, but 11 CJR has asked, If the Brooklyn Nets find a way to trade Nick Claxton for Karl Anthony Towns, will this put them in title contentions? Because they'll have a 5 who can space the floor and actually play alongside Ben Simmons. So you'd have Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and Karl Anthony Towns. Would that could be good enough for a championship? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I still don't think that's a better team than Boston. I don't think. Well, you can't say it last night. I mean, the Milwaukee Bucks, they looked awful last night versus the Raptors. I still think those are the 2 best teams. I don't think that's a better team than those 2. However, however, it's an interesting team. It's an interesting connection, but I don't think they've surpassed those 2 teams in particular.
I think having Cam Thomas and Karl Anthony Towns on a team together is just too much of a defensive liability. I'll just simply involve them in a screen roll action every time and cook them. And then on the other end, I'll just foul Ben Simmons and make him shoot free throws. So in the playoffs, I just wouldn't see that team holding up. If I'm going to be honest.
Basketball by Mo.
It's just the Brooklyn Nets by Mo. It's just not basketball. It's just that unique team if they get Cat. Cat looked great against the Denver Nuggets, but we'll see how the season goes. But speaking of Cat, Harry Bridge. Now, BJ, you're going to love this question because this question involves, if I had a soundboard that had BJ Armstrong's favorite phrases like roster construction, real name, no gimmicks, it would have this phrase. Wait for it.
Okay.
He says, do you think that a 2 bigs approach, e.g. Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, can play, are you ready? A blended brand of basketball in the current NBA?
I don't. I don't. I've watched these guys now enough to say I think it's going to be tough in today's game. And the reason being is because you can't have the proper floor balance with both of those guys on the floor because neither one of them is what I would consider a low post threat. Mm-hmm. So they're always out of balance due to the way they have to play with them, right? You have to put Rudy, basically, he's relegated to just playing on the weak side of the floor.
Yep. And
Karl Anthony Towns, and Karl Anthony Towns can't.
He just wants to be on the perimeter unless it's a mismatch.
He can't consistently go to the post
someone smaller
and secure the low post area with the proper spacing to pass him the ball on a consistent basis. So with that, they're always out of space, which is going to hurt them in transition defense, which is going to give them difficult angles to make shots, get passes, set screens, so forth and so on. So it's just limited what you can do. So I don't think you can have the execution of having an open court sometime or screen roll sometime or going to the post and doing those things. So I think it makes it very difficult playing both of those guys together. And you could see the difficulty when you watch them play sometime. They have they have elite offensive players. I think Karl Anthony Towns is a terrific offensive player. Of course, Ant-Man is a terrific, he's just a phenomenal offensive player. But you could see the difficulty that they have where stretches during the course of the game where they just can't score or get the rhythm that's necessary to play consistently on the offensive end.
I think the 2 bigs approach can work in the NBA. We've seen it work over and over again. I just think these 2 specific guys cannot work together.
Yes.
No matter what happens at the other 3 positions, those 2 cause too many issues. Mandar has a question. He wants to know, is the window for the Golden State Warriors still open to win a championship? Clay and Draymond are clearly not the same players they used to be. Is that it for Steph's legacy, or do you think they have one more chip in them? Now, personally, I will never, ever count out Golden State because I've seen it up close. When that man Steph Curry gets cooking, ain't no one stopping him. But BJ, what do you think? Is it realistic for Golden State fans to think that this team has one more run in them?
Well, okay, let's just be pragmatic about this. Their window, it's not closed, but it's Mo. It's cracked now. Mm-hmm. It used to be every year you knew they were going to be there. They were going to be competing. The rest of the league has caught up to their style of play. The rest of the league now are probably just as good or better than them at playing small ball. Okay. The rest of the league probably plays faster than what they traditionally play. Steph Curry and crew, They are aging. That's a fact. However, they still compete. So give them credit. Every night they compete. Last night, you can see Klay Thompson makes a big shot to win the game against the Sacramento Kings, who are trying to, they're trying to achieve what Golden State achieved. They're trying to move up to the next step. However, Golden State keeps competing and just seems like they beat them every time they play them. Okay. I'm not going to count them out, but Mo, I'm going to say it's slim. It's really, their window of opportunity is very slim, and their room for error, Mo, is probably at probably the least it's been. I mean, Mo, they have one thing doesn't go right for them, the wheels could easily fall off their season. Well, before they had such a wide range, to play and they could lose 5 games or 10 games and still recover from that. Now, Mo, everything has to go right. Yeah, everything has to go right. And that's just age. So those guys, I think their minds are still there. I still think they have the will to win, the know-how, clearly they have that. But Mo, Father Time, it's undefeated. And at some point, Mo, you're going to have to, age is going to catch up with these guys. However, they seem to be ageless because they keep showing up and keep playing and keep winning.
This is what I was going to say. Like, Chris Paul looks like he's settled into his role a little bit more now. And if their whole squad can be healthy for the playoffs, I would never count them out. But do I trust in Chris Paul being healthy for the playoffs? Do I trust in Klay Thompson playing 82 games and being healthy? Even Draymond Green, Stephen Curry, there's no guarantees that those guys will be there as well. Obviously, it's the same with every team, but the older they get, the higher the risk. So I wouldn't say the window is shut. I think if things fall their way, they could easily make it to the Western Conference Finals, maybe even the NBA Finals. But there is a big Serbian man in Denver who's going to be standing in their way. And given that their tallest player is 6'11", as great as Kevon Looney can be on the boards and whatnot, I just think that's a very tough task for them to do. But speaking of some of the greatest teams we've ever seen, James Lanigan says, Mo, after watching the Celtics opening 4 games, has your view on them changed?
Oh, yes, Mo. Yes. Let me hear this.
Now, the Celtics have been putting up some crazy. They put up 155 points last night against the Pacers.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yep. So let's look at their games. They beat the Knicks by 4 points. Okay. They beat the Heat by 8 points. Okay. The Heat, by the way, who would be 0-5 if it wasn't for a 1-point victory against the Pistons. They beat the Wizards 126-107, and then they beat the Pacers. So the Celtics absolutely destroying a couple of bad teams, and then close wins over the Knicks and Heat, who they should beat anyway, has not changed my mind on them whatsoever. What I do love, though, is their shots now aren't just purely all 3-pointers. We're seeing more post-ups. We're seeing a little bit of mid-range. We're seeing more versatility in their offense. I'm impressed with Porzingis' passing. He had a couple great plays with Jaylen Brown last night. Their 2-man game was really flowing. They were looking really in sync. But my reservations will remain. I mean, they're playing against the Sixers next week. So let's see how they deal with Mr. Embiid. And then when they get to playing against some of the other competing teams, the top 4, top 6 teams in the NBA, that'll be the first true test. But they can go out and destroy whichever play-in level teams they want. And I won't be moved, because my concern has never been about the regular season. I've always maintained they're going to be a top 2 seed in the regular season. My question is, when you get to the playoffs and you find yourself having to try and stop Giannis, and Al Horford is 37 years old, and Kristaps Porzingis has got his injury history, how are you going to do that? That's my concern. I won't be able to judge the Celtics until the playoffs come around, because anything less than a top 2 seed would be a major disappointment this season. But I do like what I've seen. I mean, I can't be mad about it. But my judgment is reserved until then. How about yourself, PJ?
Well, I love teams that do what they're supposed to do. Meaning, if you're a better team, for the most part, you should take care of your business. And I'm going to give the Celtics credit. However, we saw that last year with the Celtics. I mean, they got off to a phenomenal start. And they are notorious, especially their best player, for being a slow starter. Yeah. Okay. So they have a different look. Porzingis gives them a different vibe with the team, especially because he gives them space. They're bringing Al Horford off the bench. So you got to give the other teams in the league, the rest of the league, an opportunity to catch up and say, oh, this is how we have to play these guys. This is how we have to match up with these guys. And normally that takes a little time. So we'll see. But overall, especially early in the season, it looks like a great move. Porzingis has fit in seamlessly. I mean, offensively, Mo, he's really good. You have to say that.
Yeah.
He's really good what he's doing. And you have to
And
like
defensively, he's been impressive as well.
And I like the fact what they're doing with Al Horford, bringing him off the bench, keeping him as fresh as they possibly can at his age. And they've been playing well. So give them credit. You know, we know the concerns of the team last year, especially with a new coach a year ago. That was his first year. He was thrust into that situation. We know there were some bumps and bruises and some bumps in the road, but it seems like they've adjusted that. They've gotten help for the coach. They've adjusted their team. They traded away your favorite player, Marcus Smart, and it seems to be working early in the season. So we'll see.
Well, the one thing as well, though, their bench has been horrifically bad, with the exception of last night against the Pacers. Their bench has been severely lacking. That is another concern I have. Bench scoring, bench depth. That's a major concern, especially throughout an 82-game schedule.
So, you know, but I think overall, this is a team, as long as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are leading this group, they're always going to have a chance. Now it's going to be the rest of the roster to step up, fill in the gaps, and be able to provide the support that's necessary. Because those two, I mean, those guys are all-stars. They are now all-stars. Jason Tatum is an MVP candidate. He's an elite player, first-team All-NBA player. So they will always be, to me, in the upper tier of the conference. It's just a matter of, can the other guys, along with their staff, come together and have one of those runs? And I think they're capable this year. At least they look like that early on.
Well, the final question we have here this week is from Nat, who's a huge Chicago Bulls fan, and he wants to get an insight from you, BJ, about the Breakfast Club.
Oh,
now,
okay.
If you guys don't know, the Breakfast Club was a little group Michael Jordan put together where they would train before practice early in the morning. Was it 6 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
BJ, were you part of this Breakfast Club? What was that like?
Well, you know, I didn't even know it was a club. It's just.
Well, no, that's just how it's branded now by Jordan.
Yeah, it's branded. Yeah,
right?
Yes.
It wasn't a club, like you have to get a membership sticker, but that's what they call it now, because we had a basketball camp where we hosted a Breakfast Club, and we had the best young prospects turn up at 6 a.m. in a gym and put through their paces. So now that's what it's become. But take us inside.
Well, what it became was the culture that we kind of created within. Like, let's get our work done. And we were all committed to this. You know, Mo, you know what the Breakfast Club really was? It was just a unity of thought. It was like, hey, Mo, what's our goal for the season? Well, we want to win a championship. Okay. Well, how are we going to do it? Well, we're all going to commit ourselves. Okay, great. And then 1, 2, 3, championship. Okay, you can say that. Well, we just took it a step further. We all had a unity of thought, and we all put our words and our actions and our behavior was always displaying this unity of thought. Like, we are going to train every day. Check. We're going to commit ourselves to, eating properly. Check. And then we're going to actually give our best every day. Check. I mean, it was nothing more than that. Like, you committed yourself, and then we all had a culture where, well, maybe, we've all been in rooms where everyone says what they're going to do, but how many people are actually going to do it? We actually did it every single day. And I don't know if it was a big deal.
What was the vibe like? Was it like a relaxed, everyone's having fun, or was it like everyone's super locked in every day?
You just like Mo, they call it professional sports for a reason. Like, here's the fun. The fun is
Winning.
We have a goal.
The fun is winning.
I don't know. I've never had like Mo, like you and I, for instance. My wife just asked me the other day. She was like, "You guys are crazy, you and Mo." She goes, "You guys do that podcast every day." And I don't look at it that way. I look at it as Mo and I are committed to doing our best every single day.
We can't let the people down.
Okay. If you're committed to something, I don't know if it's fun, but what I do know is that it requires you and I to have a unity of thought. Like every day we figure out a time to
between the furthest time zone possible in America.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We figure it out. Like, so I don't know if it's fun. I think it's fun because we're committed to doing this and we're responsible to having this culture where we're saying we're going to give the very best show every day. So
yeah, and that's to yourself as well, because some days if I'm in meetings and stuff all day and it's like, okay, cool, we're gonna have to tape this at 11 p.m. LA time. We're gonna do that, or we're gonna have to, and that's what 5-6 a.m. UK time, or we're gonna tape it in the middle of the day because you've got a meeting or something you got to get to a game.
Right.
So it's all about finding a way.
You find a way. If there's one word, Mo, that comes to mind to answer the question very simply, it's discipline. We had the discipline to go for it. You know what I mean, Mo? Like,
yeah.
And I think we all would have lived with, the results of what happened. But we tried with the process to give ourselves the very best chance to get the results we were looking for. Now, that's what I would say. So it was just discipline. Like every day, you have the discipline to do it. Now, Mo, you win some, you lose some. I could deal with that. But we went through the process. So I appreciate those guys because I remember how difficult that was every single day. It wasn't like every single day I was like, oh yeah, let's go. I know, like there were some tough days in there. And then you saw a teammate come in and then the other day you may be the guy who's inspiring the group. So that was always tough. So that's a great question.
No, fantastic. Always love the questions that come in from our listeners. Love the Discord community we put going on where the fellas talk hoops and the ladies too, and everyone involved. They all talk basketball 24/7. That does bring up one question I have for the listeners, because if you're still listening here at the end of the show, you clearly enjoy the show. Do you guys like the roundups of the night's action before, or do you prefer just answering questions like this and general NBA topics? I'd love to hear some feedback from you. Let me know. Discord, social media, whatever. Let me know what you guys like hearing, because this show is nothing but for the people. That's why we do this, is for you guys who listen, and we want to make it the best show possible. So let us know your feedback on what you love hearing from this podcast, and we can continue to improve it every day because, well, the season's 2 weeks in now, BJ, and we're not slowing down.
Because Mo, we got to give the people what they want
every single time. We'll be back on Monday. Will we have a special guest joining us on Monday's episode, BJ?
Yes, we will.
Okay, so you guys stay tuned, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you know what to do. And most importantly, get buckets.